How's AI impacting the firm? Are the younger generations who's adopting it faster, and is it supporting the organization with revenue generation?
The younger
Yeah,
generations by a long shot.
by a long shot.
Yeah.
Hey there. Welcome to the Speak and Flow podcast. I am so glad you're here. This show is for leaders who care. Leaders who know that when things get messy, the way we communicate makes all the difference. Every week, I sit down with incredible guests, founders, VPs, rising stars, to unpack real moments of today where communication matters. We talk about what works, what doesn't, and how you can lead conversations that create trust, movement, and momentum. Because in uncertain times like today, your words have weight. Let's use them well. Let's dive in.
Welcome, dear listeners, to the Speak and Flow podcast, where we slow things down just a bit to help you communicate with clarity and confidence. Each episode is just 20 minutes long. We're going to give you some practical communication tips in response to current events that are happening at your work and in your world. Today, we're talking about communication within generations. So, generational disconnect and conflict at the workplace. Did you know that organizations are losing around $56 billion in productivity because of generational disconnect? That's new research has shown. And so today's conversation, I brought to you an expert. He's a trial and litigation attorney and partner at Hahn Loeser Parks. Welcome, Gabe Wright. Hi, Gabe.
Hi, Melinda. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining. And so I'm going to launch with this one first question. When someone listens to this episode, what do you hope that they can change in their lives?
Uh, I would think that the biggest takeaway I would want a listener to have after listening to this conversation is, some tools and strategies for talking and bridging the gap between generations when they're communicating with each other. With the younger generations coming in and Gen X and the Boomers being in a different slot, that bridge is getting wider, and we need to connect it.
I love that. And you're experiencing that at the law firm, and you have a nationwide law firm that supports complex litigation. And you're seeing that happen. And so before we jump into that, can you share with the audience a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. As you noted, I'm a litigation and trial attorney and a partner at my law firm. I've been doing it for about 25 years. In my current firm, I've served in a number of roles, including my firm's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I
Mhm.
have served as the litigation area chair for the San Diego office, which is where I'm located. And I presently serve on the board of directors for my firm. So those experiences have given me a unique perspective on dealing with the generational differences in my office and organization.
And so as you are working in the law firm and you're seeing more work, younger generations come into the law firm, how has that changed the culture or the organization?
So I think you start where the older generations are, which is,
Hmm.
even when I came on board as an attorney 25 years ago, the concept was, this is my first and last job. I'm going to stay here, die at my desk, get my gold watch, right before I go, kind of thing, if I manage to retire. And the younger you worked, and it was just something you did. Everyone was
Yeah.
just committed to doing the job. And the younger generations that are coming in have a different value system. Okay.
Right.
And that value system really involves, they prioritize a work-life balance. Okay. But at the same time, the economic pressures that we're feeling in society, the ever distant goal now of wanting to buy a house or a condo is becoming harder, they're also very
Hmm.
financial driven. And so this commitment to the organization that you start with is not necessarily there, and they're more focused on making as much money as possible while
Hmm.
the work-life balance that they
Yeah. Which is very different from the previous generation's culture. And that's just, we put in the time, we put in the effort, we put in the years and the blood, sweat, and tears before we get this money and upgrade financially. And so, how have you seen that communication play out within the organization?
So it becomes difficult. We can go in a number of directions with this, okay? And
Uh-huh.
I guess I'll go with three things here. Number one, the younger generations interestingly want they want guideposts. They want benchmarks, okay,
Hmm.
which is not something that we historically have relied on. It's about bringing the whole person and giving your all. So they want you to give them those benchmarks to shoot for, which is as
Hmm.
opposed to the flexibility that we've used to have. At the same time, they're not as open to criticism, directness, and so
Hmm.
delivering the message when there is a difference requires a little bit of finesse. And then the third thing is that um, I think that they're coming in with sort of less of a practical understanding of how business works and,
Hmm.
and the operations of the business.
Hmm.
And so having direct conversations with them, not implementation of policies to try and control them, but more having
Yeah.
direct conversations with them about the organization, how the organization works, is I think what creates buy-in and
Hmm.
helps to ameliorate those generational differences.
Hmm. Hmm. And it sounds like you're highly emotional intelligent, but across the board with the law firm, have you seen people leave because there's this communication gap or generational gap? Or do you think people are frustrated or they're just not as productive?
So I'm not going to speak to my firm specifically, okay?
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
but I will speak to what you're hearing in the legal community, okay?
Yeah.
And I think that the legal community, f- there is a frustration by the older generations of
Yeah.
of the lack of commitment from the younger generations. I think that there is a higher what we call attrition rate, where the younger attorneys are much more willing to move. They're you know 10 years ago, if somebody had made three moves in the first 5 years of their career as a lawyer, they were a questionable hire. Now,
Right.
now it's one of those acceptable practices because you know that they're making those jumps in order to try and increase their compensation and positioning.
Hmm. Hmm. But you do question, though, they're making the jumps because they're switching out law firms, but then are they really learning? Are they just quitting before they're really getting the experience?
So one of the
Curious.
interesting things, and I think that this is a big factor, is a lot of the societal things and the historic things that have happened to us in the last 10 years.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
so this generation they've gone through this really economic recession, the Great Recession in the 2008, 2009, 2010 time period.
Hmm.
They went
Hmm.
through COVID, and
Hmm.
and those events had impacts on them professionally. They
Hmm.
Jobs were hard to find, so they were coming in at lower compensation levels because they just wanted to get their foot in the
Yeah.
door. And
Yep.
then a lot of them risked losing their jobs when COVID hit. Some law firms really knee-jerked and just laid people off. And our organization didn't. We managed to keep our people in place, but and so there's a justification for the moves they're making. But I agree with you. This constant moving, I think, does
Oh,
affect
yeah.
them long term professionally, because the way
Right.
I see it is the practice of law is an apprenticeship. Okay.
Yeah.
You're no
Yeah.
different than Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. Like you've got to be with the masters and learn the process. And as you stick with your person, you develop as an attorney, and these rapid moves for money, while they will get you incrementally more money, I'm not sure the long play really works for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how does the AI factor into this? Are you seeing the younger generation adopt it faster and the older previous generations not as quickly? How does that impact the organization?
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Can
The
you?
AI, how is AI impacting the firm? Are the younger generations who's adopting it faster, and is it supporting the organization with revenue generation?
The younger
Yeah,
generations by a long shot.
by a long shot.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
I think that the older generations are suspicious of it.
mm-hmm,
And I think, and you could see it in news articles that come out, are not effectively deploying it. So you get attorneys that are
mm-hmm.
getting sanctioned by courts for what we call AI hallucinations, citing cases that don't exist, and
Oh,
things like that. Whereas the younger generation absolutely knows how to leverage it,
yeah.
knows really how to speed things up. And I think that that is like the key place where the younger generation really is the future,
Mm-hmm,
because of their adaptability and their willingness to adopt AI into
mm-hmm,
their workflows.
mm-hmm,
And but sometimes I wonder if it also, you know, almost puts them out of the job, in the sense that,
mm-hmm. Well,
what may have taken three associates to do, I can do it with one who knows how to leverage AI.
yes, yes. And that'll be probably true. But then I think that the person that, yeah, adopts quickly on how to use it with their emotional intelligence, with their communication skills, can rise to the top.
And I think it, that statement is key, as far as
Yeah,
I'm concerned, because
yeah.
the use of AI, one of the things the younger generation does is they also rely on more informal lines of communication. They're
Mm-hmm.
they're more willing to text you. They're more willing to
Mm-hmm.
communicate via email. And I think the face-to-face conversation,
Mm-hmm.
even picking up the phone and making a phone call,
Right.
is becoming a lost art. And so
Yeah.
I think you've absolutely nailed it, that as they leverage AI to their advantage, being able to have that emotional intelligence, that ability to sit down with somebody and have a face-to-face conversation, that's where you're going to see your future leaders arise.
Yeah. And how does it impact the older generation with working with the younger generation
Uh,
if they
in
don't
terms
agree
in
in
terms of
terms of
AI,
AI? Mm-hmm.
so suspicion is where it is, because
Right.
where I
Mm-hmm.
think that the blind spot or weakness for the younger generation is that they lean on AI as almost the gospel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I run it through the AI engine. This is what it's saying, or this is what it's aggregated. And
Yeah.
and then somebody like me who's got a ton of experience can look at what they've produced and go, it actually, there's a miss here.
Uh-huh.
It's not quoting this right. It's not interpreting the statute correctly. So they need to learn to leverage, it's like trust but verify, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is a faster way to do it, but it is not entirely a reliable way to do it. And you
Mm-hmm.
still have to use your brain. And AI, at least to date, one thing that AI can't do is read the room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important function, I think, not just in my practice and what we do as lawyers, but in any business.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to
Mm-hmm.
be able to read the room, know who you're dealing with. And
Mm-hmm.
that always plays into, your communications, your objectives, your business
Mm-hmm.
goals, and AI is just not going to cover that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when does it become a legal risk? Is that when it becomes legal risk for the organization? When the younger generation is using AI in this fashion? When
Yeah, and that's really a big concern that we have, and why I think you've seen some relatively slow adoption to AI,
hmm
because we're trying to
hmm
figure out the boundaries, because the young
Yeah.
generation's, exclusive reliance on this.
hmm
Um, results in an increased risk of error. And in our profession,
Hmm.
that error can be really consequential.
Exactly. Exactly. And how do you teach the younger generation the art of reading the room, communication skills?
So this, I think this leads into another sort of generational difference aspect, which is the concept of work from home. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and when you work from home, and like we're able to have this conversation here on a podcast, but one of the things that tends to get lost, even just when you're doing video, is being able to take the temperature, to be able to in real time um, be able to discuss how things are playing out or working out. And so, um, what I've done is with the attorneys that work with me, they sit
Hmm.
in on my phone calls with opposing counsel
Hmm.
clients.
Hmm.
They sit
Hmm.
in on depositions and meetings, and that
Hmm.
allows for in those downtimes when we're taking a break, when the mediator leaves the room, when we get off the phone with the other person, this discussion, this
Hmm.
debrief about, okay, do you understand why I did it this way? Do you understand why I
Hmm.
made that pivot? Do you understand why I
Hmm.
raised my voice or took a step back?
Hmm.
And explaining that to them, because it's having that context from those of us that have had to do it face to face for the better part of our careers, is what
Right,
is educating them. And that's what makes it an apprenticeship. You've got to bring
right,
them in on your decision making
right.
process in order to help them develop that emotional intelligence and the ability to read the room.
And that can take a long time. Going back to what you're saying, especially if the values that they have, they're coming in, they want to rise to the top, they want to have financial stability, and then they also want to have work-life balance. All of these skills do require experience and boots on the ground and debrief, like you mentioned, and thinking about all the complexities and different ways to respond to people and how they're reacting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm. And so when you say to them, this is the reason why you're not XYZ making this much money, what would they say?
Well, so that's probably the biggest conversation I have with them. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and and what I have found is that not necessarily carrying the flag of the organization or pushing organizational culture is what gets the younger generation to buy in, but helping them understand sort of their context in the organization. And so that involves for me an explanation of financials. Okay.
Hmm.
And it's not, hey, opening up the books and saying, here are the books, here's what goes on. But what I have found is, they understandably come in and say, hey, I want to be able to come in at this time and leave at this time, not have to work on the weekends. I want my guaranteed vacation time, all these other things. But I also want to make as much money as you, Gabe. And what winds up happening is a conversation about financials. And I
Right.
will say to them, okay, here's how much money we can make on you when you do
Hmm.
what you do the way you do it. And here there's organizational overhead, and all of these other factors that I have to keep in mind, the taxes that we have to pay, the health insurance we're covering for you, all of those things. And then I get them to agree, as an organization, we do have to operate in a profit, right? Yeah, yeah, we do. Okay. So taking all that into consideration, if you made as much as me, where does that land the organization? And
Hmm.
I would say 100% of the time, on 100% of these conversations, the light bulb goes off.
Hmm.
Ah, I see. If I want to make more
Hmm.
money, I have to contribute more. I have to be more invested.
Hmm.
I have to, elevate what I'm bringing to the table, and and they get it, and they get how they operate. And then there's a flow back from them, which I think is important, and which is why this conversation winds up being valuable to me, because they'll look at me and say, "Oh, okay, I understand that, and I see what you're saying, but I think that, for example." you could raise my rate higher.
Hmm.
And we'll talk about that. And I've had
Hmm.
that conversation, and we've gone back and we've told clients we're moving this person's rate up, and now it's generating more revenue for the firm, which enables me to meet their needs in terms of
Hmm.
compensation and what they're looking for.
Hmm. Wow, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of because you're also handling complex litigation, and then you're also bringing up this newer generation workforce, and it's a balance of both. It's a multifaceted here.
It is in the role. I think that when you do what I've done for as long as I've done it, um, it becomes the new normal. But I really,
Hmm.
it's I think to be a successful organization, it's not just about money. It's about buy-in with your employees.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
so the time is worth it to be able to sit down with these people and have these conversations and understand, because I'm not gonna be here forever. But my goal is to retire at some point,
Hmm.
and we've got to groom the future leaders.
Right, right. I agree. I mean, if there are going to be our leaders, it is going to require that time to groom them and try to find some compromise or ways to talk to each other and communicate with each other so that you could bridge the gap and move forward together as an organization.
Absolutely.
That's a wonderful. Thank you so much for your conversation and your insight and experience. And last question, what do you want our listeners to take away? What is that one key takeaway?
Oh, face to face. That
Hmm.
is probably the most key takeaway. You're not going to bridge this gap through email. You're not going to bridge this gap through new policies or rules. You're going to bridge this gap through a conversation.
Yeah.
Sit down with them, take them out to coffee, have these open meetings where they can provide their own questions and feedback. And that is going to be the quickest way to get an understanding, to get buy-in for your organization,
Hmm.
and bring those generations together.
Yeah. There's something about face to face
Absolutely.
that even if you're from a different generation, there's a connection, and then you're able to hopefully some way, as long as there's trust and respect for each other, find a way forward.
You're dealing with humans. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. It's about making that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gabe. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Melinda. Thanks for having me.
I learned a lot and really sitting down to think about what it means to have these generations within the workforce and how do we communicate with each other more effectively to toward a common goal.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining. I trust that you got your takeaway for today. And remember, anytime you have a chance to communicate, you also have an opportunity to move us forward in a positive direction. And until next time, take care. Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in today. If this conversation sparked something for you, if you're thinking, we talk a lot in our organization and things still fall through the cracks, we're not getting the results that we want, I've got something for you that might help. It's called the Accountability Self-Assessment, and it takes less than 60 seconds. In one quick review, you'll get real insights as to why accountability and results are slipping on your team. And you'll walk away with a legacy accountability card. It's a simple one-pager framework to help you and your team move talk to traction. Because the legacy of you and your team is built more than just meetings. It's built on clarity, consistency, and follow through. So grab it today. Go to speakandflow.com or click on the link in the show notes. It's free, fast, and built for busy leaders like you. See you next time. Until then, keep communicating with impact and momentum.